At this time, we'd like to ask Councilman Lewis to lead us in the pledge and Councilman Conk to lead us, Councilman Lewis to lead us in prayer and Councilman Conk to lead us in the pledge.
We, the members of the Lafayette Consolidated Council, beg of thee, Almighty God, to enlighten our minds so that our work will be just and fair in all things. Give us the courage and strength to fulfill our duties according to the laws of the land, and in so doing fulfilling also thy holy will on earth and in heaven, through Christ our Lord. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good afternoon. Welcome to this evening's meeting. Thank you, Councilman Lewis, for the prayer and Councilman Conk for the pledge. Hope everyone had a great day. We welcome you to the City Parish Council meeting. We, as your representatives in Lafayette Consolidated Government, welcome your involvement and encourage your participation. This meeting is a public hearing. If you wish to address the council on any item on this agenda, we ask that you please fill out a request to address the council form, noting the agenda item number. This blue form is available to you in the foyer. Should you fill it out, please submit it to Council Clerk Ms. Veronica Williams, seated to my left, prior to the call of the agenda item. It is important to fill in the blue form completely and note the specific agenda item number about which you wish to speak. If the card is not completely filled out or is not eligible to the clerk, you will not be given the opportunity to speak. If you have materials you wish to submit to the council, we ask that you please give those to Council Clerk Ms. Veronica Williams, who's seated to my left and in the middle. In an effort to allow everyone an opportunity to be heard, the 5-minute rule will be in effect. Speakers shall refrain from debating, personal attacks, and from making confrontational or derogatory comments. I am requesting that the first row to my left be used for media only. Lastly, food and drinks are not allowed in the auditorium, and all phones and electronics devices shall be silenced from this point forward. I'm also requesting that anyone who approaches the council please state your name and title for the official record. Meeting procedures tonight are by resolution, not by Robert's Rules of Order. Documents, including the agenda item, ordinances, resolutions, and minutes related to this meeting are posted online at LafayetteLA.gov, or you can refer to the web address on the top of the agenda. The council encourages your involvement and participation by volunteering for boards and commissions. If you're interested in finding out which board suits your interests, we ask that you call 291-8800 or pick up a pamphlet at the front door. Chair announcements. Final adoption of the budget is scheduled at a special meeting on Thursday, September 6th, 2018 at 5:30 p.m. That's this Thursday, September 6th at 5:30. Sitting in for the City Parish Attorney, Paul Escott, today will be Mike Abear, Assistant City Parish Attorney. How you doing, Mike? It's good to be back in those seats, or what?
So much. But
not so much? Okay. All right. Glad you can make it. Appreciate it.
So much. Thank you.
All right. I don't have any comments per se for me as the chair, but I will now move over to any council announcements. At this time, are there any council announcements?
And Mr. Chair, agenda item number 10 in red.
Oh, I'm sorry. Item number 10 on grass cutting has been pulled by the author. Item number 10. Thank you so much for your clarification. All right, not seeing any council announcements. At this time, we're going to move to the Executive Mayor President's report. At this time, we'd like to recognize Mayor President Robideau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a couple of proclamations I'd like to read. The first one is the Infant Mortality Awareness Proclamation. It reads, whereas the National Infant Mortality Awareness Month campaign is designed to increase people's awareness of the high rate of infant deaths and is led by the Family Tree Healthy Start program in the city of Lafayette, and whereas the goal is to reduce negative birth outcomes that directly affect the infant mortality rates, and whereas the Family Tree Healthy Start project in Lafayette, Louisiana is a nationally recognized infant mortality project that targets African American women. Service area provided to any eligible member residing in St. Martin, Lafayette, Iberville, Acadia, and Evangeline parishes, and whereas since 1991, the National Healthy Start Association has been dedicated to reducing the incidence of infant mortality that is prevalent in many communities with large minority populations, high rates of unemployment, poverty, and limited access to safe housing and medical providers. And whereas the Family Tree Healthy Start program in Lafayette, Louisiana has made a dramatic impact on the high rates of infant mortality that are prevalent in the community, providing critical services to women and their infants. And whereas the National Infant Mortality Awareness Month campaign provides opportunities for the community to get involved and support the Family Tree Healthy Start program in Lafayette. Now, therefore, I, Joel Robideau, Mayor President of Lafayette Consolidated Government, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2018 as Infant Mortality Awareness Month. And I think we have some folks from the Family Tree here.
My name is Marie Collins. I'm the Executive Director of the Family Tree, and I want to thank you, Mayor President Robideau, and to you, the Parish Council members. Each year, on average, over 500 babies in Louisiana never celebrate their first birthday. The majority of these babies are African American, Hispanic, and American Indian. Today, the Family Tree Healthy Start program is kicking off a month-long campaign to increase the awareness of the high rate of infant mortality in our community. Studies have shown that the cost of care for low birth weight babies has an estimated annual economic impact of $13 billion. While intensive neonatal care is an effective means to decrease infant mortality, a more cost-effective approach is to increase a pregnant woman's participation in early prenatal care. Since 1998, Healthy Start projects across the country have successfully increased the rate of participation during the first trimester of prenatal care from 41.8% to over 70%. This success directly saves the lives of many vulnerable infants. I would like to invite you to visit our program so you can see firsthand the impact we have on Acadiana. You could also attend our Infant Mortality Remembrance Service on Thursday, September 27th at 6 p.m. at Green Lawn Memorial Services. And of course, you can always stop by our offices. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I also have a proclamation that recognizes some of our French immersion students and their efforts. Proclamation reads, whereas the program de la Francophone is in partnership with Lafayette High School French Immersion, the Lafayette Parish School System, Codafil, and Lafayette Consolidated Government, and whereas the program is providing 20 community service hours in French per immersion student in the upcoming 2018-19 school year with local businesses and partners such as Lafayette Travel and Lafayette Consolidated Government. And whereas this program, businesses and organizations in Lafayette Parish will have an opportunity to be more French-friendly, improving the presence of daily French in our community. And whereas our local participating businesses will benefit from the excellent educational value of French immersion through the students' work, and the students will benefit from applying their education while gaining real-life experience in various workplaces. And whereas by participating in this program, the community will help to support the school system's efforts to increase understanding of our local students' value as French speakers and heritage bearers that are vital to the survival and protection of our culture and benefit our cultural economy. Whereas community support for the program can be a trailblazer in building support for celebrating the value of other languages and educational initiatives taken by parents, students, and teachers in Lafayette Parish. And whereas this program will bring local, state, and national attention to our area, and whereas I support the efforts of students, parents, and teachers of this program, and I know that they will be excellent ambassadors of our community, therefore I, Joel Robideau, Mayor President of Lafayette Consolidated Government, do hereby proclaim September 2018 as Heritage Language Month. And I think we have some of the students and their parents in the audience. And I think that, where's our teacher? There he is. Madame Warner, you want to come up and receive the proclamation? Dr. Thornton, Lafayette High, Peggy Feehan with Codafield.
You can use that podium if you like.
C'est de la musique pour mes oreilles. You got that?
La musique. Wait.
Pour mes oreilles. Thank you, Mayor Robideau.
Music to your ears. I better speak it. I play it. If y'all want to use the front right here, Mayor, like just wrap around the front right here. Does any of your students play an instrument? T'as jouer le violon, l'accordéon? Là-bas? Qui? Well, I'm definitely going to stand up for you. That's Terry would ask me that right there.
Some of y'all come on this side.
I need a booster seat.
I can't see past you in the green room. So all three of y'all get in double rows. You squeeze in a little bit more. All right, everybody look right here. Okay, everybody, look right here, please. There we go.
Any teachers out there, hustle up here for a picture. Hey, we got to get one picture. Steve, hurry, hurry, hurry. Hurry, 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 hurry.
Two.
Cheese. V? Anyone learning how to play the accordion or fiddle or bass? Some people might need band members.
You're going to offer lessons.
Yeah, sure. That's it, Mayor.
Laurie, are you going to do the budget? Last thing, Mr. Chairman, is the budget to actual. I'll give it to Ms. Toops.
Yes, this is our monthly required budget to actual comparison of all major funds through July of 2018.
Okay,
That's it.
that's all you got? All right, Mr. Mayor, President, is that it?
That's it. Thank you very much.
All right. We're moving right along. Public hearing for Fire District Special Election. I now officially open the public hearing for citizen input on any matter related to the Fire District Special Election. 5-minute rule is in effect. Are there any blue cards?
Two citizens signed in who did not wish to speak to support the fire district proposal. And we do have one speaker who signed in, Mayor Glenn Brasso, sorry.
Okay. He is from Karen Crow, Louisiana.
Bob,
There's a 2-minute rule for,
Off now then. I'm kind of nervous, you know, in the big city in front of y'all. But, you know, I was a volunteer for 30-something years, started back in '66, and then around '96, I figured out it was staying up all night volunteering and going to work early the next morning was for a young person. So I passed the torch on, and I'm here to tell you that back in '96, volunteer firefighters were a dying breed, and today it's even worse. And I know y'all have a tough decision to make tonight about going to the people with a millage. And I'm the mayor of Karen Crow, and it doesn't affect me. The tax doesn't affect me. We have fire protection. But I'm here to, and I was hoping to listen to the presentation first, which I've heard a few times. But I think the people in the parish need to really sit up and pay attention. I know Jay, since he's one of the older ones on his council, and since he's been on, but of course he's a former firefighter, and he could see it coming, and he's been saying for years, we need to do something in the parish, and it's probably been 10, 12 years, and now it's about at the end. And you know, with no money in the parish, consolidated government has been cutting that budget for those parish departments, volunteer fire departments, and my understanding is that in the upcoming budget, they're going to be, I think, cut another 25%, but I'm not sure of those numbers. So it leaves the area departments with receiving somewhere around $30,000 a year. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think that pays for the insurance on a truck. And so basically the small municipalities and the city of Lafayette has been subsidizing fire protection in the parish for a number of years. I mean, to try to get volunteers, we actually started paying a stipend, a pay per call a few years ago. And I don't remember how much we're paying per call at this time. But it does help, but it's not, there was some interest when it first started, but it's not bringing any new people in. So basically, our taxpayers are paying for us to pay some people to go fight fires in the parish. Plus, we're subsidizing a lot of that equipment and just the cost. And of course, it's hard to say, no, this is the city limit sign, and we're not going to cross that line, because those people out in the parish are friends of ours, and some of them are relatives. The sad part is we have some volunteer firemen that live in the parish, and it hurts them. What's going to happen if it takes longer and less fire equipment to get there to try to save, property and people's lives? And it's a safety issue as far as I'm concerned, because the sooner you get to a fire, there's a multiplier effect that if you, within a few minutes, it'll cause a certain amount of damage, and then as it goes on, the multiplier is really bad. So anyway, I would just like you all to consider that. And I know the word tax is a bad thing, but it's something that we got to live with. And if we want fire protection in the parish, somebody's got to pay for it. So I'm going to end just a little bit early, just to prove, Mr. Castillo, that I can keep my remarks shorter than 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, good. It's 4:49. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Thank you, Mayor Brasso, for coming out here. Thank you for your comments and your input. Appreciate it very much. All right. Any other blue cards? Okay. With that being said, no additional comments. I'm now closing the public hearing on the Fire District special election, and now we will move to resolutions. This is a public hearing, and blue sheets are available for anyone wishing to address the council. 5-minute rule is in effect. Can you please read?
Resolution 56, 2018, a resolution of the Lafayette City Parish Council concurring in the ordering and calling of a special election to be held in the Lafayette Rural Fire District, which consists of the unincorporated areas of the Parish of Lafayette, State of Louisiana, to authorize a new special tax therein and proving for other matters in connection therewith.
Need a motion and a second? Motion by Castillo. Second by Councilman Conk. Before we go to council discussion, at this time, I would like to call up Chief Benoit, Chief Chad Saunier, and Mr. Brian Champagne. We'll make it quick. They have a presentation to show us right quick, and what we want to do is educate the media and the public. The first part will be how the rating is actually conducted and what they look for in points and what determines your fire rating. And then from there, we'll move to Mr. Brian Champagne, who's the president of the Lafayette Parish Association, to explain if the millage were to pass tonight and go to the voters in December, exactly where those dollars are going to be spent and how that it helps with the rating situation with protecting the people in the unincorporated area. So you make it quick and sweet. Councilman Jay and I and Councilman Bellard have been attending a lot of meetings and been working with you guys. And thank you for being here tonight. Also like to recognize those firemen that are out here. Milton, Youngsville, Judice, Scott, Karen Crow, Broussard, thank you so much. And all the volunteers that are here. The floor is yours.
I want to apologize in advance. Running into burning houses, train derailments, that's my thing. Talking in public is not. So feel free to holler at me.
Well, what we'll do is we'll let you get through with everything, and if any council members have any questions, we'll reserve it for later so you can get through the process.
Sounds good. I'm here to present to y'all tonight the last rating we had 5 years ago with PIL. I actually did the rating for the parish. We had a few deficiencies, several deficiencies that we're here to discuss tonight. That's what I'm going to do real quick. The Parish Association is made up of 8 departments. Right here is all the chiefs and their contact information. I know all of y'all have a packet, so if any chiefs in your district and you want to contact them individually, feel free to call them, please. Parish Fire Association is made up of 8 departments. The issue we have, and we'll kind of get into detail a little further in the presentation, only 3 stations in the parish, which is where we take a large deficiency in points. Like I said earlier, the parish rating was conducted in 2013 by Dwayne Quibido, who's a member of PIL. Fire rating, for those of you new council members, is rated on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 is the worst, 1 is the best. They come in and look at different things. They look at how you do your paperwork as far as if you're getting the proper training mandated by PIL, NFPA, if I have all of the proper equipment mandated by PIL and NFPA, and if it responds adequately and in a timely manner. Takes in a lot of things. Something to remember that all fire chiefs in the country, we have no say-so over every 5 years. When NFPA comes in and raises a standard, they tell you have to have a $5,000 piece of equipment. We have no say-so in that. We just have to do what they say. So we kind of at their mercy on that point, as well as PIL. Every year PIL evaluates their criteria and they make changes accordingly, and we have to conform to that. So we have no say-so in that. But there you can see on the right is the actual points, the total of the points. We'll kind of get into it, Lafayette Fire Department, the parish. And on the right is the classification, 1 to 10. Again, 1 being the best, 10 being the worst. We have a unique situation in the parish because all 8 departments are 1 department for parish fire protection. The municipality, Scott, Karen Crow, Lafayette, Dusson, we have our own city rating. But parish-wide, all 8 departments are 1. So if you have 1 or 2 departments have tremendously low score, and you have 6 departments that are doing excellent, that kind of levels it out and it evens it out. So all departments are 1. And when we talk in tonight's presentation, I'm talking of all 8 departments. When PIL comes in, they look at 3 different aspects. They look at fire department, which is our biggest points. It's 50% of the points. Then they look at water department, which is 40%, and then communications is 10%. First thing we'll go over is communications. You can see in 2013, we received a 1.1 out of 2. We're fortunate, all of the parish association, all departments use the Lafayette Fire Department dispatching center for communications, and and what that does is that gives us extra points, a lot of points where it would, it's beneficial. We were fortunate enough to where Chief Benoit made some improvements and we were able to improve this score in the recent rating. Credit for operators, we received a perfect 3 out of 3. We had the proper number of operators. Dispatch circuits, this is how we receive an alarm through a pager. You can see we received a 4.82 out of 5, so we did real good there, which brought our total score to 8.92 out of 10. So we did fairly good in dispatching alarms. Credit for fire department personnel, here I'm talking about all 8 departments combined again. You can see we received only a 5.67 out of 10. And the reason we were so low, we'll talk about in a little bit of distribution. Every mile and a half, you have to have a fire engine, and in the parish, we just don't have that many fire stations or engines. So we received a little more than half of our points. Credit for reserve pumpers. For every certain amount of pumpers, you have to have a reserve or backup pumper. You can see we got a little more than half of one. Pump capacity, we have to have a certain amount of gallons per minute for fire and fire trucks. We received a perfect score on that. Ladder service, anytime you have 5 buildings over 1,500 gallons a minute or 3 stores or more, you're required to have a ladder truck for that area. We have some buildings in the parish that meet that criteria, and we have no ladder trucks in the parish. So you can see we received a 2.27 out of 5. A credit for reserve ladder trucks, what we can do is we can supplement a reserve engine for our ladder, so that's why we got some points out of that, out of the 1. Credit for distribution, we took a huge hit. You can see we got 0.57 out of 4. The reason our point there was so low is because every mile and a half you have to have a fire engine, and every 2.5 miles you have to have what they call a service truck. For us, it's a tanker. Obviously, with only with only 3 stations in the parish, we just can't do that. All of our stations in the municipalities of the parish. Company personnel, credit for company personnel, there's 15 is the number, but there is no cap. You can actually have more than 15 if you have the financial means to have a lot of firemen. You get a lot of points. We only received a 4.1 out of 15, and the reason that's so low is because these guys volunteer. They required, whether you're a volunteer or career guy, you have to have the same amount of rating. You have to have the same amount of training for the NFPA standards, for the PIL standards. So these guys are working they're working 40 hours a week, have family obligations, personal obligations, doing everything they can, and they volunteer in their time. And it's just, you can't ask God to go get 70 hours of training a month, and that's a month, in addition to everything they do. So 4.10 out of 15 is what we received. Credit for training there, again, when you have a guy has all of this personal things that he's doing in his personal life, and he's not receiving a paycheck, he's just doing it for a thank you, and a lot of them don't even want that. It's kind of hard to ask him to, give extra time. So we received a 2.87 out of 9. And public fire control is back, the old rating is a 2 points, and it was bonus points before they made the changes. Now it's a requirement, but the last rating it was a bonus, and we can see we received a 0.72 out of 2, and all that is going to the schools, educating kids on fire prevention and stop, drop, roll, Sparky, and all of that stuff. But we did get some points because some departments are doing it. Like I said, it's a group effort. It's all 8 departments, so some of us were doing it. So we got 0.72 out of 2. So bringing that in mind, we got a 22.26 out of 50, which obviously a little less than half, but a lot of the points, like I said earlier, is just big hit in staffing and big hit in on-duty staffing because we just have volunteers and training. Water supply, you see water supply out of 35, we received 19.06, and what happens is they come in and you have to have so many hydrants in the commercial area, so many in the private area. The reason we had so high, which I mean it's not high, but it's high enough, is back in 2000 and 2001, LCG purchased a tanker for each department in the parish, and we were able to pick up our points, and that's how we got 19.6. So in lieu of having the hydrants, every house fire or commercial building fire we have 3 departments responding with 3,000 gallons of water each. So we got about 10,000 gallons of water when you add up all the fire trucks plus the tankers coming. So that's how we were able to get 19.6. And I want to mention that the reason we also got 19.6 is we had to add, because of the growth of the parish, we had to add 3 more what we call a fill site stations around the parish, where if we had a big fire, everybody comes, dumps their water, and we shuttle it to the fire. So we had to add 3 stations to get a 19.6. So a lot of work was done on the VFDs in addition to the tankers. The credit for hydrants, we received a 1.91 out of 2, and that's for installation and having the right hydrants. We all have to have the same hydrants, same threads, the same installation methods. LCG, or parish government, did a great job on that. Inspection and condition of hydrants. Well, we received a 0.56 out of 3, and that's out of our control again. That's just water department or whatever fire district you're in, whether it be North Water District, South Water District, LCG, conducting inspections of their hydrants. Bringing our total to 21.53 out of 40, so a little over half on water supply. And there again, without an actual pressurized water system in the parish, it's going to be very hard to improve on this score. So to recap our rating from 2013, you can see we received 89% of our fire alarms. Fire department received the 44.5, and water supply we received the 53.8%. And divergence, put it in layman's terms, is the fire department can only be as good as its water department. So if you have a great fire department but a horrible water department, it's a number they use to balance it out. And ours was 1.86%. And our original score was 46, which is a class 6. Once we received that, we came to the council 5 years ago, and we were able to get an emergency purchase to purchase a couple hundred radios to give us additional points for what they call a means of secondary receiving an alarm, and we were able to bump up the score to 50.85. So with that being said, here's some historical data just to show that the alarms, which like I said earlier, that's LCG dispatches, you can see as a result of changes made and improvements in the communication or dispatch center, you can see we had a steady increase in the last 15 years. I'm going to skip fire department and come back. Water, you can see as a result of the added water supply, the tankers and the added water shuttle sites, you can see we were able to have a steady incline in water, improvement in water. And fire department, you can see on the other hand, is a steady decline. And like I said earlier, the reason for the decline is more population you have, more calls, more equipment you need. With more equipment comes more money. It's just a fact of life. And you can see we've had a steady decline. And you can see we went from 51% to 50% to 46%. So for the last 15 years, we've had a steady decline. Here's some recommendations. I'm not going to bore you. I know y'all have had it. You'll have a copy. These are some of the things that PIL, when they came in 2013, said that we need to do. And if you look at them, a lot of them goes around training, and additional personnel or paid on staff personnel would take care of a lot of these things as far as for inspections, public safety control, increased duty personnel. A lot of it go hand in hand. And this is something that the rating consultant gave us when he did a study for us for LCG a couple years ago. This was a graph he gave us of your fire rating, and if it would increase, you can see if it increase or decrease, what an estimation of what you would have to pay as far as for an increase or decrease in your fire premiums. And this is not a science right here. I have a lot of factors which go into, the cost of your home, fire station which protects it, your actual company. There's a lot of variables, but this is a good average is what we were told. And with that being said, I'd like to turn it over to the president of our association, Brian Champagne.
Cool. Before you do that, Chief, I just want to comment to make it clear for the public. When you talk about fire hydrants, the fire hydrants that you see in front of those subdivisions are not necessarily for you to tap into. Is that correct? Because we've had some legal opinions and all of that, and the people in the neighborhoods thought that the fire hydrant was for
On the
them.
record, yeah, they flush the hydrant, to flush the water system. So if you see a hydrant in the unincorporated areas, so certain hydrants are just for flushing the system to remove some of the contaminants. It's not for firefighting purposes, quote unquote.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, I'll try to be quick as well. We all have the same issues, decrease in funding and increasing in call volume. By the way, Ryan. Just to give you an average of what it costs to outfit a firefighter and cost of equipment. It costs about $22,600 to outfit a fireman completely. from the helmet all the way down to the pants, boots, gear, gloves, etc. And of course, these things continue to rise each and every time we order. Things go up. Cost of a new engine, looking around $600,000 for basic. You can get a lot more expensive, but to get the basic NFPA, what NFPA calls for, you're looking at about $600,000. Cost of a ladder, low end of $1 million, easy. Again, you can spend a lot more, but you're not going to spend a lot less. It's about $1 million for a ladder truck. Tankers running about $300,000. All the tools and equipment required to be on those trucks, you're looking at about $50,000 to $60,000 per apparatus is what we're required to do by PIL and NFPA. These are not something we have a choice in. They're not luxury items. They're just, this is what they say we have to have, and this is what we put on the trucks for the proper credit and to do our job. During the 16-17 budgets, we took cuts in all areas. We kept Judice, Milton, and Dusson with their paid personnel, while Broussard, Carencro, Youngsville, and Scott did take a cut in personnel. They also cut the method of being able to bill extra after you reached a certain amount of calls, which is why you see a 62% for Scott. The volunteer departments also used to split $140,000. One year, one department would get 80, and the other departments would get 10. That was cut from us in the 16-17 budget. During that time, Councilman Bellard did find an additional $70,000, which we split up evenly, which was, gave us each $10,000. So it helped us some, at least restore some of the funding that were cut that year. This year, as it stands now, we're looking at about 25% cut across the board, which means most of Broussard, Carencro, Dusson, Scott, and Youngsville will go from $56,000 to about $42,000. Judice and Milton from about 98, because they split 50 for operations and 48 for staffing, to about 72,000 with that. So we came up with a plan on how the proposed funding to improve the safety of firefighters and parish fire protection. We split it up in different categories. First category is operations. We feel that, insurance is a big need, and it's an issue that departments struggle with. So in our plan, we plan to split the money where each department would get $30,000 to pay part of their insurance. By no means is it going to pay all their insurance, but it'll help them with at least some of it. Maintenance and repairs, again, $20,000 for each department for maintenance and repairs. That's not going to take care of all the repairs, but it'll compensate and help them get repairs done that are needed. Equipment, we'll pay a stipend. Each department will get 2 parish pumpers and a tanker, which is what we require to respond in the parish with. We'll give them $20,000 a unit, which will result in about $60,000 per department. This money will be used to keep up with replacement costs, keep up with, with equipment, etc. Because currently, the parish doesn't own any pumpers. They own a tanker. They own 7 tankers that are aging. And we know that these tankers will eventually have to get replaced, and that we feel like this is the best way to accomplish that goal and keep the parish pumpers on a rotational. Response, we currently pay a set amount for every department. Whether you respond to 200 calls or 700 calls, you get the same amount of money to respond. We broke it up on a sliding scale, so the more calls you respond to, the more your department would get as far as the rate. Including Lafayette, which we'll give 80, we budgeted 80 to do a flat rate, since it's easier to track the parish calls that they respond to that way. Paid personnel, this is where we're going to get our most. This is where we're going to get our most points for the PIL, but it's also the most expensive. we're allocating one paid position, which will be staffed by part-time personnel. So each department would probably have to hire 5 or 6 part-time people for them to be able to work around the clock 365 days a year. We're budgeting $140,000 per department, with the exception of Judice and Milton, because they don't have any paid people at this time, except for the paid people that you all allocate money for. So we allocated 2 paid positions around the clock. So we give them 2 people around the clock 365 days a year. Support personnel, this is nothing increased into, this is already in our current budget. We pay half the salary of our 1 communication officer, 1 arson person, and clerk of $20,000. This is stuff we already pay for in our parish budget, but we rolled it over into our plan as all expenses that would, be incurred with this plan. We also, based on pay on call, to try to help recruit firefighters, and when you do recruit them, the paid on call works good to retain the ones you do have. That has proven beneficial, like for me in Broussard. City of Broussard pays for a paid on call program, which retains a lot of the people we already have. It hasn't been a huge recruiting tool currently. In the beginning it was, but it's leveled off. But we feel that would help some, all the parish departments. And of course, our association fees that we currently get, tower fees, things that we can't overcome, our tower fees and insurance fees for Cascade and things of that nature. So we're looking at a total package of $2.945 million for the entire parish. We know that if a 10 mil would be generated, it would bring in more than that. However, the additional revenue would be used for capital programs as such of stations being built within the parish. And once these stations are built, we feel that we can man these stations by adding a firefighter position to each of the departments that the station's between, and that department would send that person to man that station for 24 hours. So in our example, if the station is built in the Austin area between Scott and Carencro, then a 24-hour person can be added to both Carencro and Scott, and they would send that person to man the station. Again, increase in rating tremendously. We want to give you the 2017 statistics of call volume in the whole parish. The city of Lafayette responds to about 8,894 calls. The VFDs, about 3,439 calls, leaving a total of about 12,333 calls total-wide in the parish. In closing, I will say that you should have all received a packet with a resolution that was signed by all 8 chiefs in support of this endeavor. We also like to thank Councilman Bellard for recognizing the needs of parish fire protection by his motion during the last budget meeting, that we would try and restore some of the funding cut this year, if possible. This is crucial to many departments. We'd also like to extend our thank you to Councilman Castillo, Councilman Nakan, and again, Councilman Bellard, for attending meetings over the last several years in working with us to try to obtain a solution to the parish fire protection needs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilman Boudreaux.
Thank you. I don't know who could address this, but when you all were speaking about the rating, it was inclusive of Lafayette. When the cost challenges that exist, it was exempting Lafayette. Based on the last presentation that just took place, is there a reason why that 8th fire district or that department is peeled out, or what benefits, or how does that connect to the city of Lafayette in that 8th capacity?
Go back to that 15-year history.
Right here.
Okay, when you look at that history over the past 15 years, this is strictly the rating for the parish. It's always been at a class 5. You can see where it started going down over the past 15 years. Lafayette is included in that because of the contractual obligation between the city and the parish for the Lafayette Fire Department to provide services into the parish, which consists of the dispatching, where you saw we got the points, we increased the points in that area. It includes the communications officers and the fire inspector, and one truck to meet the volunteers in the unincorporated areas for fire protection. So all of those things together make up the total points for the rating. So when you look at it broken down into 3 points, it's broken down into fire, it's broken down into water, and it's broken down into communications. It just so happens that communications falls under fire. So when you really look at it, the Lafayette Fire Department is responsible for 60% of that rating, where the water department is responsible for 40%. Of course, in the parish, you have no water department other than the water districts that take care of those small amount of fire hydrants. So that's why Lafayette's in the equation. If you can remember, in this fiscal year, some cuts were made to the Lafayette Fire Department to help the volunteers out by taking some of that money that the Lafayette Fire Department would use to respond into the unincorporated areas and spread it across the 7 volunteers equally. That gave them a little bit more money to deal with in this fiscal year. So when you look at the equation, you keep them in there as long as you have a contractual obligation between the city of Lafayette and the parish to provide fire protection in the unincorporated areas.
So in the explanation that was just given, are you saying that contract obligation is going to go away?
No, you're going to keep that because you need that as part of it.
Right, so that's my question. For the purpose of the rating, everything was rated according to 8?
Right, because you're going to give Lafayette.
Right.
You're going to.
But the savings on the second presentation, it only spoke about 7 agencies.
It spoke about 7, but it also gave you, there was one slide in there that showed you that Lafayette was going to receive 80,000 for those services. He just didn't give you that in what they're looking for.
They'll get the equipment money and the response money.
And currently, I think we did 30,000 maybe one year?
And they'll get the 80 for half the salaries of all the support divisions.
Right, half the salaries of the records clerk, the communications officer, and the fire inspector.
Okay, so what I'm asking from you as the Lafayette Fire Chief is, compared to the benefits that is spread throughout the 8, how does that affect us? That's what I'm trying to find out. If you could lay out the benefits for us.
What it does for us, if the contract remains in place, is that it'll show that Lafayette is not giving services away. That because you're paying Lafayette under contractual obligation, that's going to give us some of the funding to be able to take care of those needs. Of course, if you're looking at trying to say that you want to pay for the salaries of what those individuals are, then you would have to go back and look at, a communications officer is averaging $60,000 a year. When you're looking at giving the Lafayette Fire Department $80,000, you're not really paying everything, but we looked at that through legal and said that as long as we're paying a portion of it to the city of Lafayette, you're not giving those services away, it's okay to do that. So Lafayette's going to fare good in that particular area with giving Lafayette the $80,000 on top of some of the other issues that you're looking at as it pertains to equipment. Lafayette's not going to get the stipend, we'll just get that flat rate. And there are a lot of other hurdles that you have to cross that we gave you this presentation quick because of time. We know that if this thing goes forward, we're going to be meeting with a whole lot of different associations and organizations throughout the city and parish talking about this, even though it affects the 70,000 people in the parish. You've got some issues going on where right now, the Lafayette Fire Department is providing some services to certain areas where the fire protection they're receiving is not what they're paying for. So we still have a lot of issues going on that we have to sit down and talk about going forward. We just brought you what was required to show you where the problems are and what's going to happen going back to that 15-year history if you don't make some changes. We lost the rating 5 years ago, The only reason why we were able to keep it was because we were able to talk to PIL, which is Property Insurance Association of Louisiana, and ask them to give us an opportunity to fix it if we could. And we're going to do the same thing. Right now, we're in the process of being rated both city and parish. They're coming into the city in November, and they're coming into the parish in December, which means that we're going to get those results in March or April of next year on both ratings. If we lose the rating in the parish, and again, we gave you the trend over the past 15-year history, and we haven't done anything in addition to save that, which means that there's a possibility you're going to lose it. So if you lose it, then they're going to ask us at that time, do you have something that you can put in place to keep it? And if we do, then we keep it, but we know we don't, which means that we're going to retrograde to whatever that next class is. It could be a 6, it could be a 7. The slide that they showed you gives you an example of a rough draft of what an insurance company could charge a homeowner for insurance premiums should you retrograde to the next class. Again, that's only on residential. Businesses, they fall in a different category because it's all based on each individual business. Case in point, Lafayette has a Class 2 fire rating in the city of Lafayette for the entire population, but you have businesses that are rated individually because of the water source. If a business chooses not to have a water source in their own building, which we come in and connect to it, then they would be rated at a Class 10. If they choose to have their own water source, then they will get the insurance premiums will be reduced in that area. I can tell you that going forward, there are some areas you're going to see in the rating where in the city of Lafayette, some areas will have a Class 10, where everybody else is enjoying a Class 2. And that's based on the water source that you need to have, because in the city where you have your own water source, you can't have it both ways. You can't have waters in tankers. You got to have a water source that's connected to your sister city within an infrastructure, or you got to have tankers. But you can't get the points for both of them. So you're going to see that in the results of the rating that's going to be given next year. But sticking to what the parish is looking at, the Lafayette Fire Department participates with them. The funding was reduced to try to help them out without giving services away, and then you will make a decision as the new fire district how you want that funding to go forward based on what you're seeing here.
Can you say that the Lafayette Fire Department will put out less funding for the purpose of the parish protection and get paid better for the services that are already being rendered?
I'm kind of confused. Say that again.
Okay.
Break that down for me.
The first part of it is you went through some reductions to spread out to be
To give
able
the volunteers
provide
a little bit more funding.
Right. So what I'm asking you is that under this recommendation, is that going to be lessened, eliminated, or remain the same?
Under this recommendation, what you're going to see is you're going to see more personnel come into the fires in the parish to meet the Lafayette Fire Department, which means it's going to enhance fire protection and reduce.
But financially, we're going to still
But
pay
financially, you're
what
still
you
going to.
what you did is going to continue to happen.
Right,
In
yes.
addition to this.
That's correct.
Okay.
You're not going to lose that.
So from a financial standpoint, we're not getting anything back. We still going to be paying the same amount out.
Yeah, the only way we would get out of it altogether is if we decide that there will be no contract between the city and the parish to assist in the unincorporated areas.
Okay. And now responding to areas outside of the jurisdiction, are you saying that you're going to be paid now for services that you were giving away?
Well, we weren't giving it away because we were being paid, but our the money that we're going to receive is going to bring it back up to that level we were getting paid before, and a little bit more, because we lost $25,000 out of the $35,000 that we were getting to send that one truck into the unincorporated areas. So now we're going to receive $80,000. So we're going to fare better.
So you should have less, you should, I feel, I don't mean to cut Mr. Boudreaux, but I guess to help clarify is you should be receiving more revenue.
Right.
Compared to what you did because you got cut.
Under this proposal here,
plan.
we're going to receive more revenue. The services will remain the same.
But you might be responding less because these other stations are going to have more personnel.
That's correct.
So,
with the exception of the areas that we talked about, where we're going to have to sit down and decide how you're going to handle those particular areas.
and when does that happen?
Whenever y'all decide to sit and talk with me, because when he went over the slide that talked about a Class 1 versus a Class 10, with a Class 10 being like you have no fire protection at all, the Lafayette citizens are enjoying a Class 2 fire rating. There's some areas where these individuals are not in the city, but because of the distance between the volunteer fire departments, it's closer for the city of Lafayette to respond. But because of our protocol and the safety involving the firefighters, we respond with a full complement of firefighters and equipment and trucks. But so that means they're receiving the response of a Class 2 fire department, but paying the taxes on a Class 5 response. So we have to talk about those pockets of areas where those individuals are receiving more than they're paying for going forward. And that's a conversation we're just going to have.
Well, actually, they're
Like
paying.
that last one that we brought forward out in the Derby Heights area.
Right, when we gave you, an example of if we were to bill that resident for the services we provided, what that cost would be. And we gave you the minimum of what that cost would be.
And do you envision that that cost would be recouped through this process or through the fire district paying that back to the city?
I think that would be another conversation for legal to look at the amount of calls that the Lafayette Fire Department is responding to and the monies or the funding that you're putting in there. Legal would have to tell us that, is that adequate enough to say that the Lafayette Fire Department is not giving away those services?
All right, thank you.
And just to be clear, those that you just made that statement, those residents that are getting a Class 2 are actually not paying any taxes today. They're getting that service for free.
No, they should be paying taxes in the parish based on what that allocation is.
For fire protection?
Not for fire protection, because it's coming out the general fund.
That's what I'm getting
Right,
at, just
okay.
to make your statement.
Now, what they're paying for is their insurance premiums reflect a Class 5
Right.
insurance rate.
But they're getting a
But they're
Class 2
receiving the
service.
benefits of a Class 2 fire protection for a fire department for fire protection services.
Right, okay,
So they're getting more than they're paying for in that regard.
got you, okay. Councilman Terrio.
Thank you. Chief, a couple of quick questions while you're there. Currently, we still have an IGA between the city and the unincorporated right now, where the city responds if needed, correct?
We have a contract between the city and the parish to provide communications officers, dispatching, a fire inspector, and one truck into the unincorporated areas to meet the volunteers.
But from what I recall, if there were such a fire that demanded more, Lafayette would send more.
Until I'm instructed to do differently, we're not going to let anybody's house burn.
Exactly, that's what I'm trying to get at.
But again, you have to take that into consideration with funding.
Right.
Because now you're at the end where there's no more funding. The can is no longer in the dish, the can is gone. You kick that can as far as you can.
Right,
And
I
you've
agree.
seen it on the trend of the past 15-year history. So then, it costs money. It costs money. We have to be very careful with how we respond, because if we send more than 50% of our fleet outside of the city of Lafayette, it has a negative impact on the rating in the city of Lafayette. So we have to be very careful on how we're going to respond to that.
And it doesn't happen often.
What's that?
That issue does not happen often where you send it.
So far, we have not allowed more than 50% of the fleet to go out the city. It doesn't mean that it wouldn't happen.
Right.
Because where do you value a life?
Gotcha.
And so we're not there yet, but we're getting there.
You touched base on something, and somebody had asked me a question over the weekend. I didn't know how to respond, but you or any of the fire chiefs here, when a fire department responds to a grass fire in somebody's yard or going to somebody's home that was not an actual fire, does the fire department charge any fees to the homeowners at all? I'm talking about any kind of fees at all.
Right now, it's my understanding, and Chiefs, correct me if I'm wrong, the fire departments are receiving their funding several ways. Of course, the city of Lafayette is receiving its funding through taxes in the general fund. And we also get a portion of the 2% rebate that's given by the state, which goes back to the city. On the volunteer side, they receive funding from their local jurisdiction, that the small towns that are taking care of them for fire protection. They also receive funding from the 2% rebate for population served, and they also have fundraisers in that particular area. Those are the ways that fire departments are getting funding for responding to calls. Now, the Lafayette Fire Department will bill for all hazardous materials incidents that we respond to with companies who spill products on the road or wherever it's at. We will bill them for all of the services that we provide in that area. And then we recoup those losses, and it goes back to the general fund.
Do we know if the parish does that?
We do
Because
not
the Lafayette Fire Department is in charge of all hazardous materials, we bill for that.
Correct.
A majority of the volunteer fire departments do as well. There's a state statute that allows us to bill, so I would guess everybody does pretty much.
Well, most of the, if it's a serious hazmat incident that required a lot of expense, Lafayette Hazmat would be the one in charge anyway, so they take care of doing the billing, and then they recoup the money on their end for services. Is my understanding how it's been working.
Okay, and just to follow up, instances where, say, an individual has a small fire in his yard and the fire department goes out there, you guys have any charge to the homeowner for that?
I can tell you, Broussard does not charge any fees to go out to medicals, grass fires, investigations, et cetera. We don't charge anything to any citizen, whether they're in the parish or the city. It's just one of those costs incurred. Even with our paid-on-call program, we might pay 5 firemen, 10 firemen to go out. Depends on the nature of the call and the time of day, and whatever cost, it's the cost, and we don't recoup any of that money.
One thing I want to clarify too, I had another individual question. With the 2 fire stations that are in the parish, we're talking about Judice and Milton. The other ones are actually VFDs, but they're actually located in municipalities. Is that correct?
Correct.
Youngsville, Broussard, Karen Cruz, Scott, and Dusson are all in municipalities.
Correct.
I do have a question also. On the PIAL, have we ever been at a 6? I know, Chief, you mentioned it was at a 6, but we went back to a 5.
If we were at a 6, that was before my time as chief.
I saw one of the slides on the presentation that showed.
The 2013 rating, and Chad chimed in.
Go back to that slide.
We did lose the rating in 2013. We were going to be a Class 6.
Where is it at?
And they said,
Well, go back to the history.
Oh, that's
these are some of the things you can
Here's
do.
your history over the past 15 years. Okay, it tells you what your ratings have been, which has been a Class 5. What I said was that in 2013, you lost your rating. We were able to do some things with PIAL to maintain that rating and give you some more time so that you wouldn't lose it again. So we were able to save it by buying some additional radios that the volunteers were able to use to be dispatched to. So you're at the bottom of what a Class 5 is. So now here you are 5 years later, you haven't done anything different. You look at your population has increased to a certain extent, your businesses have, but your fire department haven't. So when you look at that trend going forward, going back 15 years, based on what you see right here, there's a possibility you're going to lose that rating. And we want you to understand is that when you lose it, it's not going to be that easy to get it back. And all we're showing you here tonight is that there's a proposal to help you get back to that Class 5.
Chief,
But you're not going to know that until next year.
And if Mr. Terry, if you remember, I think when we did those CBs, we had like a special meeting. We had to find the money to do that. And then not long after that, Councilman Bellard and I and Castile, we found some parish money to do a study because we feared that in the next 5 years, there was nothing in place to improve.
That's correct.
For them to come back.
And what got you to the Class 5 was the contractual agreement between the city and the parish volunteers over 20 years ago, over 30 years ago, to get to the point to where you would have everybody coming to take care of the unincorporated areas to get to that Class 5. I'd have to go back and do some research to go back 30 years or 35 years to see what that rating was at that time. Of course, the rating was viewed differently because right now what you're dealing with PIL, Property Insurance Association of Louisiana. They take care of Louisiana. You also have what they call ISO, Insurance Service Office. They take care of about 45 states in the state. Those ratings are similar, but there are some things that are a little bit different. Before PIL took over, you were dealing with ISO, which meant they came every 10 years. Now they come every 5 years, with the understanding that they can put you back in the pool. Even though they leave next year, they can still put you back in the pool and make sure that you don't just let the fire department fall apart after they leave.
And if you get out of their program, let's say we get rid of them.
If you don't want to participate, you just go to a Class 10 automatically. It's like you have no fire protection whatsoever.
Okay, let's move on a little bit. Number one, earlier you mentioned that the PIAL for Lafayette was going to start when?
In November for Lafayette and in December for the parish.
PIAL was in Youngsville 2 months ago.
Correct.
City of Youngsville.
That's the city of Youngsville.
Okay.
Okay, well,
And it
each small town have their own rating, but when you grade the parish, it's one pot for all. Everything that the 7 volunteer departments do, including Lafayette, determines what that rating is. But here's the other thing. They don't tell you when they're coming in. They may be in here all year, spot checking hydrants, spot checking buildings, looking for data on those particular items. And then when they come in that week that they've placed you on notice, then they tell us, show us your records. And if everything you have that they're looking for, you get the points. For everything you don't have, you lose the points. And in their credit, they've did some things over the years to help make it easier for us to gain the rating. One has to do with performance response, looking at how well you respond to calls within the first 5 minutes. And they're looking at if you can respond to your calls 90% of the time with your complement of companies with the first 5 minutes, you can double your points on the rating side, meaning that you don't have to worry about having a fire station every 1.5 road miles or having an aerial truck every 2.5 road miles. But we're not there yet. We're trying to get there, but we're not there yet.
Councilman Terrell, just to kind of elaborate on that point, a lot of council members or general public doesn't realize, like Scott Fire Department as an example, we're actually 2 fire departments. We're a Parish Fire Department and a City of Scott Fire Department. We have 4 engines. 2 can't leave the city and 2 can't respond in the city. So when that Parish truck breaks down, it's broke down, or when that city truck breaks down, it's broke down. We can't flip-flop. It has to stay, and you have to have 2 sets of records. I mean, it's 2 basic fire departments. So PIL may come look at the City of Scott and then come back a month later and look at the Scott's Parish area.
And the benefits you're having right now of having the Lafayette Fire Department dispatch is that you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So when you dial 911 and you say fire-related emergency, the Lafayette Fire Department is going to send the closest apparatus to take care of that need. So as far as the public is concerned, when they dial 911 in 5 minutes, somebody's coming to their rescue. Without having the Lafayette Fire Department tied in that and having another agency involved in that, it could cost you more and cost you dearly because you could be stacking calls.
Chief, do you think the PIAL is going to go from 5 to 6 or higher?
I can't tell you what it's going to go to. I can only tell you look at the history. Look at 15 years of history. It's going to tell you right now the trend is. So you may go to a 6, you may go to a 7.
Or it may stay the way it is.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Or it could stay the way it is.
Look at your history. Look at your trend. Well, look at your trend. You want me to go back and break it down again? Look at your history. We can go back past 2003 if you want to. But when you look at your history and you look at how your points on your fire department has been going down, Lafayette or the parish is not getting smaller. People are moving into the city. You have more subdivisions you have now than you had 5 years ago. So you're dealing with more. When you look at a structure that burns now, it takes a whole lot more personnel and equipment to get there to be able to put that fire out. So all I can tell you is that I don't do the rating. I'm just caught up in the rating. These individuals that do the rating, they make the rules and they give you the recommendations, and all we do is we take that and show you what the history is. So when you look at 2003, you were at 51.13%. 2008, 5 years later, you dropped to 50.4%. 2013, 5 years later, you dropped to 46%. But we did some things with them because of our working relationship with them and them trusting us that we would do some things to help save that. We can't guarantee you that right now because here you are 5 years later and you haven't done anything.
I guess the concern that I have is that the PIAL can be reflective of what happens in December. Let me take it a step further. Would an insurance company come to you, Chief, and say, you know what, I'm going to raise your insurance because in 3 or 4 months, I think you're going to have an auto accident? That's where I'm trying to figure how this can be read, which means the PIAL is not going to come out till when? You said January, February, or March?
Okay, here's the process. You don't have to participate in this rating if you choose not to. When they send you a letter saying that you're coming up for a fire grading in this particular year, you have to sign an affidavit saying, yes, you're going to participate, or no, you're not. If you say you're not, they could care less about you. They'll give you a 10 and they go about their business. If you say you are going to participate, then you sign that affidavit saying you're going to follow those rules that are set by PIL in the state of Louisiana. Then you go through the process. And then we start working together, collecting all the data that they need to make that happen. Now you say whether it's going to be reflective. There are standards that you have to go by, which are guidelines from National Fire Protection Association. The same way when you build a fire truck. You don't just decide, well, I'm going to build a fire truck this way. I'm going to put 3 seats in it. I'm going to put 4 seats. I'll put 1 ladder on it. NFPA gives you a minimum standard guideline that you got to go by. Not even the manufacturer can deviate from that. So when you build that truck, you're building that truck based on those minimum guidelines that you cannot deviate from.
Chief, I know where you're going with this. What I was trying to make the point is that if this were to pass in December, would PIAL look at that? Would that be included on what?
Let me give you the worst case scenario. When they come in April or May of next year and tell us that here's your rating. If you kept it, more power to you. But if you lost it, then they're going to ask you, what can you do to maintain it? Based on where we sit today, there's not much you can do.
Okay. Couple of follow-ups. We're looking at 10 mills here. 10 mills would be the highest millage in LCG history for Lafayette Consolidated Government. The other higher one would be a school board, has one at 16. 10 mills would be the highest millage that's charged to anybody. Now, what really baffles me, it makes me question this, is that we've got a lot of things going on behind the scenes and a lot of things on the plate of LCG right now. We're looking at a proposal to split the council, where we're going to have 5 parish guys. But yet, here's this council that's going to be proposing 10 mills. That's going to be a liability on the new council coming in that's going to take 10 mills. And the people of Lafayette have either 10 mills for fire protection, and they can't make a decision whether they want to give 2 for roads, 3 for drainage, and 5 for fire protection. But we're going 10 mills. That's the issue I have with it. It's not that there's the need. Everybody knows there's a need. There's a lot of needs. But who prioritizes? I know we have to have fire protection, but people's homes have flooded countless times. We've got roads that are turning into gravel roads. And it's just going to be based upon us to make that decision, what's going to be the priority, and not give them a choice or a decision in the matter. So.
Well, let me add something to that so that we can be clear. We as fire chiefs, our job is to provide fire protection to the citizens of the area that we're serving and to make sure our firefighters are safe. The state of Louisiana don't care whether you're a paid firefighter or a volunteer firefighter. They say that if you're going to go into a burning building, you better have those certifications. So we as fire chiefs cannot send an uncertified firefighter, whether they're paid or volunteer, into a burning building to extinguish that fire. We don't say what the cost is. We don't say where you get it from. We're just telling you, here's what we provide, here's what it costs you, and we look to you to find that funding.
Chief, look, there's no doubt. We thank everybody for what you do, really do. But as you said, you have a responsibility. We've got a responsibility to everybody that asks us all these questions. You follow me? So
I feel your pain.
What's the priority? So that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say that at the end of the day, It's unincorporated area only, and myself, who sat on this finance team, we have gotten comps from other parishes. We want to elaborate kind of what other parishes that we found that have a millage parish-wide compared to this is an unincorporated area-wide.
Correct. I don't have my computer with me to give you the exact numbers, but we're the only,
I think we're only parish.
only one in the
this
Acadiana area, but there was only like 12, I'm sorry, maybe 8 parishes in the whole state that does not have, you know, some type of millage for, or some type of tax for fire protection. And I understand your concerns as far as for the amount of millages, but like Councilman Nakhan said, it's gonna just be in the parish area, who those are receiving the services. It's not gonna be in any municipality anywhere in Lafayette Parish. It'll just be in the unincorporated areas.
And not to mention the fact that you're dealing with strictly unincorporated areas, so in order to generate the revenue needed for personnel and for training, that millage, we're looking at it comparable to other parishes. Other parishes are like 10 mills, and that's parish-wide, where this is 10 mills, and we're needing that amount just to meet the services for the unincorporated area.
Correct, and we had a spreadsheet, I don't know if we sent it out to all of y'all, but we can. As far as for the mills, 10 mil is actually, like Councilman Nakhan saying, on the lower end, you know, it just depends on the parish. But they actually had some that were 15 mil, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Okay, Councilman Castillo.
Thank you, sir. Okay, a lot was said tonight. Didn't mean a whole lot. We're asking for 10 mills for 70,000 people. That's what it's going to take to protect our people in the unincorporated areas, our family members and friends. You talk about the highest mills in LCG history. School board's the only other one with 16 mills. Well, school board is parish-wide, 240,000 people. We're talking about 70,000 people. So you're going to see a 10 mil.